Hello, I'm Lee Shupa. I'm going to be talking to you today about the upcoming year in terms of our artistic schedule. It was developed jointly with the Garden Club of Alexandria, and we will include teaching videos each month to help you become familiar with maybe some of the new arranging styles that you don't know. They are all coordinated with pieces of music from all different periods of time. And if you look at the written schedule, you'll see there's a link to YouTube, which will include a YouTube video as well as the music that you're going to be working on interpreting that month. I'm hoping everybody is going to really enjoy this. It's a little different, but in some ways it's not that different at all. I included in this year's yearbook an introduction right before the calendar of our meetings, an introduction to the theme of how to interpret music. And I'm just going to read from it briefly and then give you a few takeaways about that might make it easier to think about interpreting music per se. And what it said is that a designer must recognize their own emotional and intellectual reactions to both the inner and the outer world and use them as a basis for an arrangement. This is true in any kind of arranging, but if you want to get to a deeper level, which includes interpretive design, then you have to include other things besides just your own reactions, including the subject matter, the historical era, and these other factors may act as inspiration for your floral composition. In music, we add even a few more things that you have to think about, sometimes referred to as the sonic impulses. There's a show at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts right now, which includes sonic impulse as part of the design and the title of the exhibit. These sonic impulses include tempo, rhythm, mood, and meaning. So what you need to do is start with thoughtful listening. Just sit there, hit the play button, and listen. You might even close your eyes. If you keep your eyes open, you're going to see someone else's interpretation of what this song looks like. So listen to it first without watching the video. Then watch the video because you may pick up some tips. And then listen to the lyrics and see what they have to say to you. The goal of our arranging for the past year or two has been to take you away from doing very literal interpretations of pieces of art and to think into what are the more subconscious messages coming from them, or what speaks to the artist's, perhaps his motivation behind doing the art. Digging deeper so that what you represent in your art is beyond a mere copying or framing of, or trying to copy what is going on in a painting. It's harder to do with music, but if you just listen to the words or watch the video, you can fall into that. So after you've listened to it, organize your thoughts and start going. You need to you don't need to. We have suggested that you write a card of intent about your floral design each month because we are dealing with something a little more abstract. It may help the judges understand what you are actually trying to do. And while I'll show you a couple of different examples of this month's floral arrangement and talk in general about what I might write on a card of intent. So, in the end, what you're doing when you're listening to music is having some kind of visual imagery, some kind of understanding of the words, and some kind of feeling or emotional reaction to the music. The most abstract one, I would say, is as the emotional reaction you're having, and that would probably require an explanation to the judges. You hope the judges always understand where your head is when you have been working on your arrangement, but they don't always, and it also helps you organize your own thoughts about it. So this month we are working on a Tussie Mussie, and we are interpreting this song called Red is the Rose. I'm going to start by playing you just a bit of Red is the Rose, and it'll make it easier probably to talk about it all. So
red is the rose that by yonder garden grows, fair is the lily of the valley, clear is the water that flows from the Boyne, but my love is fairer than any. Was down by Killarney's green woods that we strayed, and the moon and the stars they were shining. The moon shone its rays on her locks of golden hair, and she swore she'd be mine forever. Red is the
I love that song, and I think it evokes all kinds of reactions, and the more you listen to it, maybe the more you'll agree with me. The Tussie Mussie, which is our arrangement this month, I think is a perfect way to capture any facet of that music. So I'm looking forward to inspiring all of you to give this a try. It is a very old form of arrangement. It was found even in medieval times. The word Tussie Mussie comes from the phrase, comes from a medieval term for a knot of flowers in moss. Mussie is moss. So it had continued use all through England's history. It meant different things in different times. But it got to its peak during the Victorian era. At that point, flowers commonly had well-recognized meanings, the language of flowers. I have a book that was my grandmother's that is many, many pages of old-fashioned handwriting with an explanation, some illustrations, hand illustrations, with an explanation of the emotion conveyed by each kind of flower. That information is online also. But if a Victorian lady was carrying a Tussie Mussie, she often included flowers that would send a subtle message, usually one of flirtation, to whoever she was meeting. Getting beyond the history, it is a compact little bouquet carried in a hand or in a vase. Typically fragrant flowers as well as fragrant herbs are used, and there are two different ways to approach this design. There is a formal approach where there may be one central flower, spectacular flower, and then working out from that there will be concentric rings, fairly organized rings of other flowers. The other type of arrangement is less formal, informal, and I'm going to do one of each for you all. We can talk a little bit about what to use to do a Tussie Mussie. There are stands like this that you can buy here and there. There are, you can roll up a piece of like rigid poster board into a cone and then fill it with like wet moss or something, and then cover it with maybe an Irish linen handkerchief in this case. You can do a hand-tied bouquet where you rotate the flowers around in one hand and until they form kind of a poof, and then you secure that and cover the stems with something, again, like an embroidered handkerchief. I also could recommend using a bridesmaid's holder, which has oasis in the top, and then figuring out a way to cover that. When you go to exhibit it at a meeting, you can find something tall like this that will hold it up, but it's better to put it in something glass, a sturdy glass container that's wider, so that you can tip it back for viewing. You can also use sometimes like a rounded bowl, like this is a bowl. This is too big. This is kind of overkill, but it's holding the Tussie Mussie in a good position for viewing. But you can use a shallow nut bowl or something like that. Or you can just lie it on the table, leaning on, they're like plate holders that you can lean them back on. So you just have to use your imagination a little. If it's small, you can put it in a teacup. So lots of things you can think about. In terms of plant material, there's really nothing much to say about it, except that you should go out in your garden and look. Almost all the flowers listed in the Garden Club of Virginia description of this arrangement are garden flowers. And certainly the fact that we're talking about the countryside of Ireland somewhere in the deep past would make using floral flowers seem particularly artificial to me. So I would see what you've got right out in your garden, or if you don't have anything, go to your neighbors, or sometimes like Trader Joe's has little bouquets with cute little flowers that you can use. The greenery is probably all in your yard, or hopefully, but just ask your friends if you don't have a yard full of flowers anymore. You don't need many flowers, which is the good news. I think what I'd like to do is start by showing you all a formal Tussie Mussie. You just saw it a minute ago. The container is pretty formal in itself, but you see how dirty it is? I left it that dirty because we are talking about ancient Ireland, so I didn't think it needed to be too shiny. The other thing about, bad thing about using shiny containers is look how shiny that is. It's detracting from what's on top. There's not all that much on top yet, and I'm going to add some more. It is, as I said, an easy arrangement to learn how to do, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to execute. And the reason it's not is because it is picky work. If you look in here, these little flowers have minuscule stems. And this is Oasis because that's what I have. Anyhow, what you need is, this is just a stem, really sturdy stem that I use as a poker to start a little hole for these flowers. Some of them are great, but the lesson that you need to learn is this is a nice sharp kind of stem. Cut it off fairly short on an angle. Don't leave leaves on these. I'm going to put this flower, it's big, so I'm going to put these around the edge. I hope I have enough here. See, this one has a leaf and some kind of trash underneath. All of that stuff gets held up by Oasis and bends the stem, and then you've wrecked the flower. So this is already trimmed right here. Put that in. This one is not going in, so I'm going to cut it again at an angle. It's sturdy enough, I don't think I need to poke at it first. I'm just going to put that in. And then cut this above the leaf. Add it. Let's see here. There's another one. Give it a fresh cut. I need to get these all pointing up in the air a little better so that they can actually read as a continuous group of flowers. I maybe short one, but I'm not going to worry about that very much. I am going to put, I have these little garden red roses, so I did save one to put right down here in the middle. I like the color with it, and of course it is the theme of the song we listen to, Red is the Rose, but it is frequently used in Tussie Mussies, and in the language of flowers, it's definitely a symbol of love. This song is kind of love gone wrong, but there's nothing wrong with starting out in the center with a good one here. I'm going to add a little purple here because contrasting colors are a good thing in Tussie Mussies. They add interest. This stem is winding, it's soft, and it has leaves. None of that is going to make this easy. Yeah, we're already coming to grief here. Let me get one that looks a little sturdier. This is an azurate, a wild azuratum. I really do like the color. It softens up these kind of loud summer colors. Adding that little blue. So even though it's kind of hard getting them in here, I think it's worth it. Just doesn't want to go in. These side shoots are too much. So I'm going to cut it over the side shoots, and hopefully it'll just go in easily this way. There's a leaf in the way. Don't try to stick a dumb little stem through a leaf. It will break it. But we're doing okay here. I might want to add one more there and balance it out, because as a formal design, this needs to be concentric. Okay. Okay. In talking about the silver, the best thing you can do when you're working with it is to add flowers that have silver of their own, and then that silver tone helps detract from the silver tone here. So I'm going to be, I've already put in some Dusty Miller, which is a pain in the neck to get into Oasis. I could use something like wet moss, but I can't use it very easily in a formal. It's hard to get it to hold in place and creating concentric circles. You can always buy Oasis that is biodegradable. It is available now. This seeded eucalyptus has a silver color to it, and I think it kind of, even though this is a formal arrangement, I like it a little softer. So I'm creating a cuff of silver that is kind of a gradient going into the arrangement. And just continuing around like this. I also used in this arrangement something called Mountain Mint. I have to do a plug for Mountain Mint. It's pretty. It's in flower right now. It smells like mint. It's It's something I learned about at a meeting many years ago from a woman who owns a native plant store. Anyhow, she claimed that buying mountain mint, the mountain mint plant itself attracts more beneficial insects than any other thing you can plant in your garden. And it is amazing to go out there in the morning, and there will be hundreds of big bees, little all kinds of things. She's right. There's nothing else in the garden that does it like that. I will say though, these little garlic, they attract a lot too. I'm all over attracting beneficial insects. Anyhow, this is very silver too. I have it in the middle, but I'm thinking of just echoing it around the side along with the eucalyptus because it's such a pretty soft color. This little cuff that I'm putting on around the edge, it doesn't have to be as formal a design as what we were doing on the interior. In fact, its whole point, and not everyone even does it, is to soften the look a little. I mean, to me, this is what's making it look like a bouquet. It's my favorite part to do. A little more. Okay, and then there's one more thing I'm going to add because I haven't been talking about it, but what I'm doing in this arrangement is utilizing, it's a formal arrangement rather than going into the emotional depths of that song. I decided to focus on the language of flowers. So I put in, if you wonder why I have all these little chrysanthemums in here, and there are quite a few different ones, it's the message from Victorian times is it represents slighted love. We don't really know what happened to this love, but slight, if not actual death, was definitely involved. So I'm putting in some rosemary. Rosemary is for remembrance. And herbs have always been kind of a really traditional part of doing Tussie Mussies. You want them to, between the mountain mint and this rosemary, they're gonna smell great. I don't want them to stick out too far. Okay, this little level down here is kind of low, and what I'm thinking of doing is including another little flower in there that maybe comes up a bit higher for interest. This is feverfew, which has a message of I will always think of you. So we have slighted love, remembrance. The chrysanthemum also, I don't think I told you, it also it's a universal symbol of mourning. Probably in every culture except the American one, you don't really hear about chrysanthemums, but around the world, it is definitely a mourning flower. So I'm going to finish up with these little, talk about fussy, putting in these little white flowers. I also, besides, I like what they're doing for the real estate there. I really like having the white in there for contrast. It just makes it look so much more interesting. I didn't have much feverfew out in the yard right now, but there's enough here to make some kind of statement here. if I wanted more white, I do have quite a bit of this status. I could add it in there and make maybe a whole circle of white. And then if you're feeling insecure enough about it not being all symmetric, you can fill in the gaps like that so you have a continuous row. So I'm going to stop there and move on to an informal arrangement. I think I've got that all. Get some of this mess off the table, or at least out of sight. Okay. I'm going to move on to this arrangement, which actually I really enjoyed doing this more than the other. I liked just using the music itself as inspiration rather than the words or I am thinking about the setting. I won't say I'm not. I wanted something to look like, when I heard that music, and I really do like it, I kept thinking about other sad songs like Faithless Love, Like a River Flows, or Your Love is Like a Teardrop. Those are songs by favorite singers of mine. And those songs are sad and evoking water and rivers. And the countryside in that part of Ireland they were on the western coast of Ireland, is beautiful but sad in itself. It's got a sad history. So this is my sad feeling emotional Tussie Mussie. It doesn't need too much more because I didn't want this to go on forever. So I did use mostly purple in this arrangement. Purple is an international symbol of mourning. The Victorians used it to wear during times of mourning. These garlics that I'm putting in here probably don't have much to do with the western coast of Ireland, but they looked like thistles to me, kind of. They just looked kind of Irish to me. It's the same way these, I used billy balls in this. I don't know if those are Irish either, but they looked Irish countryside to me. So this is all about interpretation, and that's what went into that. I actually did put roses in this one also. What I was trying to create here, you all can probably see it, I'm going to put another rose in there, is a river running through it, the middle, which I didn't want to create in blue necessarily, though it definitely has blue accents. But this is a river of mourning, so it's mostly done in purple, intentionally. Going more for a feeling than something that was realistic. There is a collar around here. You can see it. This is a bridesmaid's holder that is covered in moss. And also I found some native grasses out by my pond. And these grasses have this purple color, and their leaves are definitely have purple on their tips and edges. So I loved them. I wanted them to be softer, so I just made a circle out of them to give a softer collar. And that circle is held together with bind wire. So I had to hold on to this and keep making circles and adding, anyhow, it was sort of a pain in the neck. You can also use this, and you can make a circle This one is falling out anyhow. You can make your little shape that you want, your little circlet, and then put like silver flower wire around it to hold it, and then add it. There. Anyhow, I also used as part of this cuff U. U is the symbol of sorrow, and that's the main thing I wanted to be conveying in this arrangement. I had a little of this eucalyptus, 'cause it's just a pretty color and a pretty form to put on around the edge of an arrangement. It's very soft. The U is not, so I don't know. I would walk down the aisle with this, but I guess I should be doing it at a funeral, not a wedding, if this is successful. Anyhow, that is the informal arrangement, and take your pick or somewhere in between. And I hope you all enjoy this, and I hope all of you are encouraged to do it yourself this month. Thank you.